Just compute. All right, welcome everyone to the second night of Foods to Fight Cancer. We're just having a few technical difficulties, but we're going to try to get started. The focus tonight is on cruciferous vegetables and leafy greens, and I'll explain why in a minute. And we're going to just do a couple things first before I do the slideshow. One is we're going to start our grain just because that takes longer, so we'll at least get it started. I said I was going to make farro, but we've had farro the last 2 nights, so I changed my mind and I'm going to make some brown rice. So if everyone wants to put their water on, whatever you're making, I'm feeding like 5 people tonight, so I feel like 1 cup of rice might not be enough. So I'm going to do 3 cups of water and 1.5 cups of rice. I always wash my grains, all of them, because you just don't know dust, heavy metals, whatever contaminants might have touched it. It's just always a good idea to wash your grains. Rice in particular, you kind of want to, I'm not doing this, but you can soak it. So sometimes what I'll do is do the rice like this and then put this in a bowl and like literally soak it underwater. That removes some of the arsenic. And then if you cook it with excess water and then drain the excess water, that removes more arsenic. So I think while I'm waiting, I'm actually going to do that. While I'm waiting for my water to boil, I'm going to let it soak. And I'm just going to show you what I mean without making a mess. I like filled this bowl and I have this colander, this sieve on top of it. So I'm going to just do this while the water is boiling. And then when I'm ready, I'll just lift it out of the water. But that will help remove more contaminants. The second thing I'm going to do is, it depends what you're using. If you're going to use the tempeh, who raise your hand if you're using tempeh? Okay. Tempeh, I feel like it needs a little marinade or something. You don't have to. This is optional and it wasn't included in the recipe, but I'm going to just cube it and then put a little bit of soy sauce and rice vinegar, or you could do just soy sauce if you don't have the rice vinegar. This is the kind I bought. It's called 5-grain tempeh. And mine is all gluten-free. It's soybeans. Hang on, someone called. Oh, it's my mother. I'll call her back. All right, so I'm just gonna, it's much firmer if you've never used it before. It holds together better than tofu, so you can cut it in smaller cubes. So I'm doing these kind of, I don't know, 1/2-inch cubes. The more surface area it has, the more it can absorb the flavors. So I'm just going to take these cubes, put them in a bowl, and I'm not measuring it. I'm just going to drizzle rice vinegar, like a tablespoon, and a tablespoon of soy sauce, just for like a little flavor. And I'm just going to let that sit while the rice is cooking and everything else. That's optional. You don't have to do that. I think it tastes a little better. Oh, here's Tracy. All right. So, I lost Carrie too. It's weird. We're losing everyone. I've lost Carrie, Tracy, I can see you finally. Hi, welcome. And Kathy fell off again. So you're not the only one, Tracy, having problems.
Okay, I'm good now. Sorry for the delay.
No worries. So what we've done so far is we started the grain. I'm doing brown rice. I know I said farro, but I was explaining I've had farro the last 2 nights, so I switched to brown rice tonight. So put the water on for your grain, and then I just made a little marinade out of soy sauce and rice vinegar and cut up the tempeh. And I'm gonna let that sit while I do the talk.
Okay.
And then I'll send the talk to everyone in case you lose connectivity. You'll be getting a recording. So let's see. All right, let's see.
And Sandra, you'll send the slides this week too, right?
Yep, I'll send the slides and the recording. So my water's boiling. I'm gonna just add that rice that I like cleaned and drained to my boiling water. And oh, one more trick that I wanted to share. When I do rice or farro, sometimes I'll use, this is better than bouillon. It's just really flavorful. It's a veggie one. And I just take like a teaspoon out and I'm just gonna add it to the rice. Hey Siri, set timer for 35 minutes.
Do you worry about all the sodium in some of those products?
I don't worry that much in general, but if I had hypertension and I were trying to really achieve a low sodium diet, that's probably not the best product. It is high sodium, but I'm using a little bit. It's going to be split between many people. So, but you're right, the sodium product. All right. So here's the talk on foods to fight cancer. And I just talking about cruciferous vegetables, calorie density versus nutrient density. Calorie density is the amount of calories per pound. So things like, water has 0 in a pound. A pound of vegetables has 100, fruits 300, grains and starches 500. And you can see like the plant-based foods have fewer calories per pound compared to animal products at 1,000, junk food at 2,300. And oils of fat, of course, are the most calorically dense at 4,000 calories per pound. Of course, you don't eat that much of it. Just like nuts, seeds, and avocados, the nuts and seeds, the portion is smaller. So those are the 2 yellow categories. But when it comes to fruits, vegetables, grains, starches, and legumes, you can eat a lot more volume and it adds up to fewer calories. Where nutrient density is the opposite. The plant-based foods have the most nutrition per pound. And all the empty calories in junk food, it's exactly what they are. You're eating all these calories and you're not getting anything for your calories. Rip Esselstyn said, here's what people don't understand. Feeling full has nothing to do with the food's calories and everything to do with the volume. And here's an example of it. It shows how 500 calories of oil, is just a little bit in your belly. Cheese is a little more. Meat is like 1/3 of the way, halfway. Potatoes, rice, and beans is 7/8, 500 calories. And 500 calories of fruits and vegetables fills up your belly. So are you familiar with what cruciferous vegetables are? Can you guys name these?
kale,
spinach, kale,
cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli.
Asparagus.
Swiss.
So you're
Swiss
right that,
chard.
yep, the cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, and the Brussels sprouts, but actually the asparagus and spinach is not cruciferous. They're still good for you. Radishes are cruciferous, and the kohlrabi in this picture. And these is showing all of them. And then here's like some of the most common ones. So it also includes collard greens, arugula, rutabaga, in addition to all the kind of cabbage and broccoli family. And this is an extensive list of everything. And it includes like a lot of the, the leafy greens you'd get in a salad mix, and even other root things like daikon, radishes, wasabi, turnips. So the benefits of cruciferous vegetables, they're high in calcium, folate, fiber, vitamin C, beta carotene, potassium, selenium, lots of antioxidants. But specifically, they contain a category called glucosinolates that give them their distinctive aroma and taste. And sulforaphane is the one that's getting a lot of attention for its cancer-fighting abilities. There's more than 100 different glucosinolates in nature, and they work by activating these other compounds that have anti-cancer effects. So in broccoli, it's glucoraphanin is the name of it, which is activated to sulforaphane. And watercress, Chinese cabbage have different ones, and broccoli and Brussels sprouts have other ones. And the point is that there's all this science behind the food that we eat that we don't even realize when we're eating broccoli, like what actually is, why is it so good? There's actually science to prove, like to identify what the compounds are that are so good for you. But understanding how it works is important to get the most out of it. So the sulforaphane is activated when it comes in contact with this enzyme that's only released when you damage the food. So like when broccoli or cauliflower is chopped or chewed, that's when the myrosinase is released that activates this sulforaphane. So there's actually some science to show if you chop your vegetables 5 or 10 minutes ahead of time, it will increase the sulforaphane as it's sitting there on your cutting board waiting to be cooked. Cooking it too long or too hot decreases the activity. And freezing, like frozen cauliflower and broccoli, they've been boiled briefly, which does decrease the amount of sulforaphane, unfortunately. So in summary, chop and chew, steam for only 1 to 3 minutes, chew well to activate more. So broccoli fights cancer in many different ways. It helps detoxify carcinogenic substances. It prevents precancerous cells from developing into malignant tumors. It promotes the suicide of cell cancer called apoptosis, and it blocks blood vessels from forming that feed tumors. And one of my most favorite ones is that it increases the action of our natural killer cells, the NK cells that attack tumors. So it's like literally boosting our own immunity to fight cancer. So what's more powerful than broccoli is broccoli sprouts, shown on the left. And 1 ounce of broccoli sprouts has the same amount of sulforaphane as 1.5 pounds of mature broccoli. So a serving size of broccoli sprouts, which is like 2 to 4 ounces, has 50 to 100 times the concentration of sulforaphane, of the sulforaphane than the serving of broccoli. That makes sense. So it's because each one of those little baby sprouts becomes a mature broccoli. So they just are super concentrated with nutrition. They're high in fiber and protein, have lots of vitamin C, A, calcium, and iron. And the recommendation for a culinary dose is 2 to 4 ounces per day. So I wanted to learn more about sprouts. I went to Jonathan Sprouts, which is in southeastern Mass, and toured it and saw how they all grew. And it's just fascinating. These are mung bean sprouts. They grow in these long, dark tubes, and they water them a couple times a day. And 4 days later, that picture in the middle becomes that picture on the right. And those are like the bean sprouts used to be the only ones you could ever get like in Chinese food. And these are the broccoli sprouts growing in trays that are continually rinsed and drained. Oh, and the one on the left is some other kind of sprouts. I forget which ones those were. And this thing automatically rotates and washes. Or you can grow your own by buying broccoli sprout seeds, and you put them in a jar and you soak them to start them off. And then you lie the jar on the side and rinse them a couple times a day. And in 4 or 5 days, you have a whole jar of sprouts. And then you just soak them to get rid of the hulls and keep them in the fridge. It's the most economic way. Other leafy greens include, the collard, kale, arugula, and watercress are all cruciferous, but spinach and Swiss chard are non-cruciferous, but still provide lots of nutrition, are very high in protein. These are the most nutrient-dense foods besides the sprouts. Adding vinegar or citrus increases the absorption of calcium and iron from these leafy greens. And if you're not eating meat or dairy, you want to, maximize how much calcium and iron you get from these foods. They contain an abundance of vitamin K that helps decalcify blood vessels and protect our arteries. So there's lots of studies showing decrease in heart disease from a diet rich in leafy greens. And they're high in folate, vitamin C, and carotenoids, which are all antioxidants that help fight cancer. Dr. Esselstyn, who's more in the cardiology field, recommends eating a fistful of leafy greens 6 times a day, spaced out as like medicine for your arteries. Because what happens is every time you chew these leafy greens, our body produces nitric oxide, which is the most powerful vasodilator we have in our body. And it allows your blood to get to your brain and your muscles and your organs more efficiently and get rid of heart disease. Antioxidant greens also help to remove plaque that builds up in arteries. So you can actually reverse the plaque that narrows our arteries. And his 6 favorite greens are kale, Swiss chard, spinach, arugula, beet greens, and the actual beetroot is super powerful too. He even sings a song talking about all of these greens that are so good for you. Sea vegetables are another leafy green that are super high in vitamins, amino acids, and trace elements, minerals, low in calories and fat, and high in protein and calcium. They're just a nutritional powerhouse. These are 4 fresh local seaweeds that you can get, but sea vegetables or seaweed also have something special called fucoidin and fucoxanthine that interferes with the cancer cell's ability to grow and promotes cancer cell death. And since seaweed is the only source of fucoxanthine, it should be part of every anti-cancer diet. And sea vegetables have synergistic effects with soy, meaning when you eat seaweed with soy in like a miso soup, for example, it's better than eating either one of those things alone. So here's some suggestions. You can eat nori, which is the dried seaweed sheets, and make healthy rolls out of brown rice and vegetables like here. You could make a seaweed salad out of wakame or get it at an Asian restaurant. Arami is a dried seaweed that comes in shreds like this. This is the easiest way to add it to soups or stir fries or a tofu scramble. You just need a little bit, it expands. And dulce flakes comes like this little jar, like a seasoning, and you can use it in place of salt and anything. It does give it that little, seaweedy flavor. So you have to, something to get used to. Kombu is a big fat seaweed that is used to make miso soup broths. And it helps reduce gas when you eat beans if you soak the beans with the kombu. It can also be added to green tea. So you don't actually eat it, you like soak it in things, and then the nutrition comes out of it. So tonight we're going to make a green goddess dinner. You've probably heard of green goddess dressing before. It's basically a combination of a bunch of herbs. But this dinner is like all bunch of green, vegetables all piled together. And then to make it in a plant-based world, I have this saying, any bean, any green, any grain. Like when you're thinking of dinner, you want to make sure you have a bean, a green, and a grain. So tonight, our bean is tempeh, or you could use any can of beans. Any green, we're doing a lot of them, and any grain, pick one. I'm gonna do brown rice, but you could also do farro. So moving on to the cooking. See, who did we lose? Carrie's back. Tracy, Ashlyn, Rebecca. Kathy never got on. That's too bad. All right, she tried multiple times, I know. All right, so check on your rice. I'm just gonna make sure. You want it on a really low simmer, your grains, so you don't run out of water. So I'm just gonna keep that going. We're gonna just start chopping. So we're gonna cook everything together in one pot. And like I said last time, like whenever you have the opportunity to add onions or garlic, even if it's not in the recipe, like go for it. So I'm gonna practice what I preach, and I'm gonna start heating up. I'm gonna use this big can so everything will fit in it. So I'm gonna I have a small onion that I'm gonna just start. I didn't put it on. So I'm just gonna put on kind of low medium heat. So as things are cooking, I'm gonna be preparing the next item, because I now have 33 minutes to finish this. And part of this is to prove that it doesn't take as long as you think. Sometimes the recipes have a lot of ingredients. You think, oh my God, it's going to take way too long. And, things go quicker than you think. So I'm going to throw in. It also doesn't have to be perfect, right? You can spend way more time cooking if you're dicing it just perfectly. Like it doesn't have to be. So I'm just throwing those in. And then I have these left over from last week. I cut off the stems because sometimes the stems get yucky first, but the rest of them looked really good. So I just cut up all the mushrooms from last week. And this was like an extra box that was like 8 ounces. So I know this wasn't on the recipe, but I'm just going to throw it in on top of my onions. And I'm going to let those cook. I'm also going to add, like I said last time, garlic is so good for you, the allium family. So I'm just going to add this. I know it wasn't in the recipe, or maybe it's in the sauce, right? But while all that is in there, I'm just going to throw in a few garlic cloves too. So why not? All right. So then I'm going to put those on top of the mushrooms and let it all kind of steam together. All right. Now I'm going to do what I just said, the broccoli. We want to chop up this broccoli to release the morosinates and let it sit for a little while. So I took off the bottom couple of inches because they get really fibrous, but then I'm going to eat these other discs that I chopped. I'm just going to chop them and bite-sized pieces so they're edible. And this is all just going to be mixed together. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect the way the chop is. I want it in small bite-sized pieces. So when it's all mixed together, it's just easy to eat.
Sandy, I have a question about beans and tahini.
Mm-hmm.
So I started reading How to Reverse Heart Disease by
Excellent. Love that book.
They say no they say no nuts and no tahini.
Yeah. If you have coronary artery disease or a high calcium score, or you've had a heart attack or a stent, then right now the data suggests no nuts, no avocados, no tahini. because that's the diet he used when he reversed these people's coronary artery disease. So, you know, there might be data that comes out later that shows, oops. All right, sorry, just wanted to get this here. All right, if you can see in here, but yeah, you're right. For now, if you have any of those conditions, we make substitution. So I'm just mixing up the mushrooms and onions. They still haven't released their juices, so I'm just gonna leave them a little bit longer. And I stopped my broccoli, it's gonna go in next. And I'm just gonna get my asparagus ready. There's different ways to do this where you break them, but look how many millions of spears in that. I'm just gonna cut the bottom like 2 inches off. And then I'm gonna see if that looks good. If they're pale, often that means it's a little stiff. The other way you can do it is just snap it, and wherever it snaps is the spot. But this looks good to me. I'm just gonna chop this. All right, good. And I was gonna do Swiss chard, but it didn't get purple. So I have kale that I'm gonna use. So I'm gonna go back over here. So I don't know if you can see, but there's like that no oil, right? So you can see there's a little bit of brown on the bottom of my pan. It's not burning, it's just a little bit of brown, and they're starting to release their juices. So one thing at this point that I love to do is just add a little bit of water or veggie broth. And it just releases all that brown on the bottom. And it's caramelized, you know, it's like caramelized onions. It's just like this another delicious layer of flavor. So now that that's ready, I'm going to throw in the broccoli to have it steam on top of that. And if you didn't do that part, which is fine, you could just put a little broth in a pan with the broccoli and just start to steam it. I'm
If
gonna add this.
if I'm using kale, sorry, if I'm using kale, should I put the kale in now?
I would wait on the kale.
Okay.
I do it in order, like I think the broccoli takes the longest, and then I think the asparagus, and then I think the leafy greens.
Okay.
So we can start preparing the leafy greens. I got kale too. You have to strip it and take that middle spine out. So I'm gonna do that while that's cooking. I'm just gonna remove the spine from each one. And you just, that's what Ann Esselstyn does. She makes that noise. Called Wellswine. They're like 90 and incredibly healthy. So I do anything I can for you to do. And you can see it's just really quick when we just strip that spine out. So then you're left with, these are just really fibrous, don't have a lot of nutrition. So those are just going there. I'm gonna just take my pile of kale and chop it up. And if you have this kind of kale that I was using, is called lacinato kale or dinosaur kale. But the curly kale, whatever kind of kale you get, red Russian kale is the red spines. Well, all good. I love this one. It's easy to strip, it's easy to cut up. It's really dark. The darker, the better the nutrition. All right. Big mess here. So I'm just gonna check out my broccoli and give it a mix. to me, it looked, I think that needs a little more time before I add anything else. So I'm gonna just turn it down a little bit. And together we can make the I didn't plan this out well. All right. I think I'll have to put these in a bowl. That's so push my veg. So I get my cutting board free. Stick these over there. And you can literally use any vegetables. You could do broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots. It doesn't have to be. Whatever your favorite vegetables are. All right. So let's make the dressing. I soaked my cashews, half a cup, and I'm going to drain them. And then I'm going to put everything in my blender. And then 3/4 cup parsley, 3/4 cup cilantro. So the great thing about this, when you're blending it up, you don't have to worry about the stems as much. I don't want the big tough ones at the end, but I'm just gonna, oh, it smells so good already. I'm just gonna get most of the leaves off, and it's like a compact cup. So I'm just gonna do the whole, like we were talking earlier, like you measured and you have a little bit left over and then you put that in the fridge and then it goes bad. So I'm just adding all of it. A food processor, I'm thinking as I'm going, might be better for this. As I'm saying this. I vaguely remember last time I did the food process, the blender, and it just didn't. It was really hard to get to combine. So I'm gonna shift gears. All right. And let's see, it calls for the cilantro. I have a ton of cilantro. If cilantro tastes like soap to you, leave it out. And you can use more parsley. You could just do parsley with more basil. And you don't have to chop it up that much because our instruments are going to do that. I grow chives. They're perennial, so it just calls for a couple of tablespoons of that. So I'm not going to add all of that, just some of those. And then I have this starting to the end of the year, the stems are getting really woody on the basil. So I definitely don't want the stems for this in there. This is actually Thai basil. It's just what I happen to pick up this year to grow, but so it's going to give it a slightly different flavor. Thai basil to me tastes like a little mintier than the regular basil, and the leaf shape is a little different. I'm not going to use the yellow leaves, just the nice green ones. All right, just going to throw that in. All right. All right, so I have parsley, cilantro, basil, chives. I actually have a little bit of dill. I'm just going to add one thing of that because I just have it in my refrigerator and don't want it to go bad. We had this conversation earlier. Just going to add some of that. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic cloves. And then it calls for jalapeno pepper. So I grow these too. So they happen to have one in the garden. I do this thing, the seeds are hotter than the fruit. If you don't like spicy, leave it out. But I use this, it usually works really well. This grapefruit knife to remove the seeds. Just like that. I'm gonna wash my hands. All right. We're gonna put in a tablespoon of miso. This has the natural probiotics in it that are so good for you. There used to be something on the top of the miso about breast cancer, like it was so good for you. I'm going to put in some tahini. It calls for a 1/4 cup. I'm not going to measure, but you can. And you can leave this out if you're worried about your heart. You can, instead of the cashews, you can substitute white beans. So you can, whenever you see a recipe that calls for like cashews as part of the sauce, just substitute out white beans. And it's so delicious. And it calls for the juice of a lime, but you could also use lemon if you prefer. Whenever you mix the acid from the lime or the lemon with these leafy greens that are the herbs, our herbs are leafy greens in this, we're allowing our body to get a lot more nutrients out of it. And then optionally, you can leave out the maple syrup or just put in a teaspoon. And then I think that's all the ingredients. The water is just to get it to the right consistency. I'm just gonna check my broccoli. So my broccoli is what it looks like. I think the best way to tell always is like a fork. It's still very hard. And it's no longer steaming. There's no water. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water and turn up the heat a little bit. I had it low so it wouldn't burn while I was not paying attention. And I'm going to add the asparagus. Oops. And the kale. So it's kind of layered on. Mushrooms and onions and broccoli in the bottom. And then asparagus, and then the kale on the top with, I don't know, a 1/4 cup of water in there. And the steam is just going to come up through all of that. So, sorry if this is making anyone nauseous, moving the camera. All right, I'm going to turn this on and make the goddess dressing. I'm just gonna get down the sides. And you know, right now it's like a pesto consistency. It actually looks really good. I'm gonna try it just to see. It's really good. So many flavors. I'm gonna add.
Can I see your consistency again, Sandra?
Yeah. So it's, you know, like solid.
Okay.
So I haven't added any water yet. The recipe calls for a half a cup of water. That sounds a little generous. So I'm gonna probably just add a quarter cup
Mhm.
and blend and then see. And if I need the whole half cup, I'll add it.
This is a good way also to just use up all the vegetables in the refrigerator.
You're right.
No, that's
And
kind of what I'm doing at this point. I'm going away for the weekend. And so I've got all these vegetables. I'm just throwing them all in the pot.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think the half a cup was right on. I'm adding the other quarter cup. Let's see what it's doing now. Because you want this, I'm sorry. You want this to drizzle over, your, all right, so this is my consistency now.
And we wanted to drizzle.
Drizzle or just mix, like, I guess I said drizzle, but I'm pretty happy with this. I'm gonna mix this in with all the vegetables. I'm gonna try it. Yeah, it's so good. I could just eat that for a meal as like a side. All right. So that's pretty much the sauce done. You could add more water or broth if you want it to be thinner. So it's like whatever you want. And then you can choose. You could either pour it when the vegetables are done, you could pour it over here, or you could mix it in with I'm sorry, you could mix it in here with everything, or you could plate it and then drizzle it on top.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever your preference. So I'm just mixing it up now that it's had some time to oops, making a bit of a mess. But the water in the bottom is allowing it to steam and cook. I should have covered it. I'm gonna cover it now. Hey Siri, off. So my rice has been for 35 minutes and normally it takes 40. I always like to check it 5 minutes ahead. Hey Siri, set timer for 4 minutes. So I'm just gonna let that finish off its 4 minutes on very, very low simmer. So, did I do everything? Oh, the tempeh. Great. I'll add the tempeh now too, while it's steaming. That way the tempeh can cook with everything. And this last few minutes, it probably just needs like 5 minutes of steaming. The lid on. All right, was that everything? Let's see. Oh, spinach. I'm probably not gonna add it. You could add spinach at the very end. This takes the least amount of time. So if you wanted spinach, I already have kale and you could I could add this whole box of spinach and it would just vanish in there. But I want to save it for my smoothies. And then, okay, I'm gonna get ready to plate it. Does anyone have any questions?
Sandra, if you used beans, would you do anything differently?
Beans in the entree or in the sauce?
In
Or
the
both.
entree, in the entree.
Yeah, in the entree, I would add them at the very end. Because, you know, they're already cooked, so they just need to be heated up. But I love the option to substitute beans for nuts and beans for the protein. They're so good for you. Yeah, this sauce is amazing. You could heat up the sauce if you wanted to, the green goddess dressing. I usually mix it with the whole thing all together. Kind of debating which way to go. All right, let's see how this is doing. But you can see, even though this is like elaborate, you know, a lot of veggies, we made it in like a half an hour, you know, just with the head start of the rice. So this is probably done. I'm just going to use my fork to. Yeah, so for me, I'm going to shut this off. Hey Siri, off. So I'm going to shut off my rice as well. So yeah, for me, like I like my vegetables al dente. But if you want it softer, you could cook it more. You do lose some of the nutrition if you know, overcook vegetables. So I am going to just plate it with some, you know, rice on the bottom. And then I'm going to put my veggies, kale, broccoli, and asparagus, mushrooms, onions, garlic over it. And it's so hot, I don't think it's probably necessary to heat up this green goddess dressing, but move back over here. So that's, you know, yummy dinner for me to have this. And that sauce is going to heat up. You could heat it up if you wanted to on the stove, but I just like keeping things simple and not doing that. I usually, to be honest, dump it all in the pan and just mix it all together, but I don't think it's quite as pretty. So it's delicious. Did you guys, anyone get a chance to try it and try the dressing?
The dressing is really good.
Right? It's you know, just all those herbs mixed together and with the garlic and the miso, yummy. Any questions?
That would even be good with like coleslaw.
Yes, the dressing. It would also be good on like a baked potato or a baked sweet potato.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really good. And then mix some, you know, beans into it to just get more legumes. It would be good over tofu.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called green goddess dressing. If you thin it out even more, you could put it over like salad, like a green salad, and use it just as a dressing.
Yeah.
Or you could put it over like a cold pasta salad, like use chickpea pasta and then put in, oh yeah, so that was the other thing I was gonna do is I was thinking cherry tomatoes like in the salad with corn and then put the dressing on. So I
Mm.
usually, slice my avocados around, twist them. I used to put the avocado in the sauce, but then it doesn't, it oxidizes and then it tastes funny, the leftovers. So I usually just cut my avocado like this in the shell and then use a spoon because it's the same size to scoop it out and just put, some pieces of avocado on it to get healthy fats. It's, part of the meal. And then also, I was recommending some cherry tomatoes. Oh, that one's gross.
I'm gonna put Johnson sprouts on the top of mine.
You're
Oh,
gonna do
yeah.
what?
Johnson sprouts on the top of mine.
There you
I
go.
have them in the fridge.
Which kind? Do you have the broccoli sprouts?
I have the pea shoots.
Oh, those are so good.
Yeah.
I love those.
My kitchen has never been dirtier on a daily basis. And it
That's
is
a good
now.
sign.
That, with cooking with all these vegetables and all these grains, fortunately I have more energy to manage my kitchen that feels like it's out of control.
Yeah, it is a lot when you have all these ingredients and
Yeah.
you definitely have to keep up with it.
So
Yeah.
Sandra,
Yeah.
is this, I don't know if you consider it a stir fry in the pot. Is this the best way to cook like any vegetable?
Probably the best way is to steam it to preserve nutrients. So I usually use I have like this huge pan that has this insert. It's meant for
Oh.
pasta, but I just put like 3 inches of water on the bottom and I'll just throw all my cauliflower or broccoli in there and steam it covered. If I'm making a smaller amount, I use my little steamer basket that can fit into like a smaller pan or it can fit in a bigger pan. But the best way to preserve nutrients is probably to steam. But I love that big it's like a Le Creuset pan. It's like really heavy. It never burns. Like the heat is distributed so evenly. I just love that pan. So I use that a lot. It's one of those pans you buy, costs a fortune, but you have it for the rest of your life.
I actually got their measuring cups and spoons this last year, and I love them.
Ooh, I haven't seen those. Sounds nice. Everything they make is top quality. So we did it in the amount of time. I was a little nervous, but next week we're going to be talking about, I think, whole grains and the importance. It's so important, whole grains over refined grains. And we're going to be making this amazing well, I don't have it in front of me, but it's a quinoa salad. We're going to roast the tomatoes. And tomatoes, we're going to talk about those at the last session. But when you cook tomatoes, you increase the lycopene, the amount of lycopene you can get from them. And it's the gift that tomatoes have for anti-cancer power is that the lycopene. So you do get that out of, jarred tomato sauce has that lycopene. Tomato paste. I meant to mention that last time when we added the tomato paste to the mushroom dish, the lycopene is the highest concentration in tomato paste. So wherever you can squirt a little bit of tomato paste in. And last time I used the can and I told you, because it always goes bad, right? If you just stick it in the can in the refrigerator, I put it on blobs on parchment paper, let them freeze, and then I stuck them in this plastic bag. So the next time I need, you just throw a tablespoon of tomato. I just grab one of these blobs and put it in whatever I'm making to up the lycopene. So that's it for today. Any questions?
No,
This was
thank you.
fun.
No, thanks.
You're welcome. All right. I will see you all next week. I'll send everyone the recording, the slides, and a bunch of recipes. All right.
Excellent.
right.
Thank you.
Happy-
Thank you.
You're welcome. Happy cooking.
Thank you.